Hey guys, want to talk to you a little bit today about the suspension on the Stark Varg and kind of how it compares to the Yamaha. Everybody knows the YZ suspension is kind of like the industry standard at this point. Pretty flawless, nice and plush, soaks up hard landings really well, handles really good, it doesn't dive on braking. Basically does just about everything right. The Stark, it was kind of rumored to have the exact same components as the YZ, and it basically does, but there's some key differences that I'm going to show you. The main thing is when you're actually riding it, there's quite a bit of difference. The Stark kind of feels more, I wouldn't say it's plush, it's more like controlled, almost a little slightly harsh feeling, like it has maybe a little bit more damping to it. But to me, it actually feels a little bit better. I kind of feel a lot of movement in the YZ. I don't really feel a lot of bumps, kind of doesn't really wear me out. It feels pretty good, to be honest, but kind of prefer the way the Stark feels. When you land from a jump, the Stark, you don't really feel much suspension movement. You just kind of feel nothing. Where the YZ, you'll feel the bike bottom, you'll feel it rebound, and there's kind of that feeling to it. The fork on the Stark does feel maybe a touch more harsh. They're pretty similar, but I do like the way it lands from jumps a little better. It feels a lot more like if you've ever ridden KYB's A-Kit suspension, how it kind of has that nice plush initial feel right on the top, but when you take a hard landing, flat land something, it really, really absorbs it really well. You don't feel it in your arms, you don't feel it in your knees, especially an older guy like me. I feel everything at this point, so I kind of appreciate that. I've taken some big hits on the YZ too. Didn't really hurt me, but you can definitely tell you're bottoming out and you kind of feel that rebound a little bit more. Also, when you go to like seat bounce out of a corner, the YZ definitely has more of a springy feel. Both these bikes are really dialed into the way I ride at this point, so it's not really much of a adjustment difference between the two. But when you go into a corner and there's a jump right out of it and you want to do like a seat bounce, the YZ definitely gives you a little bit more pop, where the Stark kind of feels more planted. I find it's almost like a little bit easier to control. Like your takeoffs and landings, you can kind of move the bike around a little bit more in the air. It just kind of feels a little bit better overall. But I'm going to show you a couple of the differences. Stark did work with Technical Touch, who's the supplier for KYB, basically worldwide, and they do all the works parts, factory stuff. So I'm going to show you the differences between these two bikes. So this is the forks on the Varg. It's pretty much from the outside, can't tell much difference. The only thing I found physically different is right here, this area of the outer tube, which I'm not really sure why they did it different, but it's actually different than the YZ. And the bottom legs here are silver and the YZ is black. It's the YZ, we got the same fork caps. Those are just bleeder valves that I added on there, but you can see right down here, if you go back to the other video, but it's kind of indented here. I don't know if this is because they've also got the X version, maybe for people to run fork boots or something like that, but it is a little different. I don't know really why they did that. And then of course we got the black on the bottom here. Everything else is the same externally on the fork. Now this is where it gets weird. So I called up Technical Touch and wrote them an email, and I heard back because they worked with Stark on this bike. They told me the difference in the fork is actually they're using the 24 millimeter cartridge, which is the older YZ unit, and the YZ is using a 25 millimeter cartridge. Mine's a 2021. Previous to that, they used a smaller cartridge. Technical Touch said that the 24 millimeter doesn't seem like much difference, but it's actually a lot more plush. I don't know why they changed it. It kind of feels like the opposite of what they're saying to me, because it does feel almost a little bit more harsh, but it actually has a little bit more damping. So I'm thinking it's basically in the way that Stark valved it. Other than that, everything is identical. Like I mentioned, the outer fork tubes were a little bit different, but internally we just have a 24 millimeter cartridge in the Stark and 25 millimeter cartridge in the YZ. Onto the shock. This is the Yamaha setup. We've got our high and low speed compression adjusters here, and then we've got rebound way down here at the bottom. You can see a little knob down there. That is the difference externally. I'm going to show you the Stark, and it's actually pretty cool. On the Stark, we've got the same shock. It's just positioned so the bladder's on the right side of the bike instead of the left. Not sure why, but probably just to get around the muffler or whatever on the YZ. We don't have to worry about that on the Stark. Externally, so you have an extra adjustment. You have high and low speed compression, and you have high and low speed rebound, which is pretty nice. I think the rebound clicker is also on the bottom here. So we've got basically low speed rebound, high-speed rebound on the bottom. Internally, I think the valving is a little bit different on it. It doesn't feel as loose in the mid-stroke as the YZ, like I mentioned. YZ has a little bit more of a free feel to it. Personally, I like the Stark better. Lower speeds, the YZ is going to feel a little bit more plush. Higher speeds, the Varg just feels a lot easier to control. I really like the works adjuster here. You can actually get these from Technical Touch. They're about 150 bucks, and you know, whatever your suspension guy is going to charge you to install it. But nice little unit. This is the rear linkage setup on the YZ, pretty standard. And this is the linkage on the Stark. If you can see the pull rods on this, they look like they're forged or CNC machine parts, whereas on the YZ, it looks like just kind of cast metal. These are a lot thinner, and they honestly look like a lot higher quality parts. You can see this is actually a machine part. It's a CNC machine part. On the YZ, it's just a kind of like a cheap cast unit. So I think the Stark really does have a lot of better components on the bike. Now the Yamaha comes with kind of like just your cheap standard Japanese triple clamps. Varg actually comes with a nice split design, kind of like an aftermarket clamp. I don't know if it's 100% really split, but it's pretty close. Actually, really, really nice unit. You can tell it's all CNC machined, and it's just a proper part. Whereas on the Yamaha stock, you just get just a cheap cast. It almost looks like a Chinese part. It's not as bad as Kawasaki's part, but it's pretty bad. That's one of the first things I usually do on Japanese bikes, to replace the triple. And with the Yamaha, as with all Japanese bikes I buy, you basically immediately have to replace these triple clamps. I don't like the cast parts. They kind of just remind me of like a Chinese pit bike, the way these things come. And you know, they're not great. If you guys ever used Luxon clamps before, these are, in my opinion, the best in the industry. Nobody making triple clamps goes through as much computer testing and development as Luxon does. Things come with titanium bolts. Every inch of material is machined out of these that it doesn't need. They're all put through programming, CAD and SolidWorks, and some other programs that are way too expensive for any dirt bike parts manufacturer to actually invest in. I know he makes a lot of other parts besides MX stuff, but the guy's really into making some super high quality dirt bike parts, and they work awesome and they look super trick too. So overall, with the nice triple clamps and suspension, basically perfect right out of the box. It's just one less thing you have to do when you buy a new bike. Seems like every Japanese or Austrian bike that I buy, the first thing I'm doing is sending suspension out, replacing triple clamps, doing pipe and silencer. Basically, that's, you know, 2,500 bucks right off the top of a new bike. So kind of nice. Stark already put some good parts on these bikes, and they've got them dialed in really, really well right out of the box. I was planning on doing a ride today, but we got a huge flood here in Ohio. There's rafts on the highway pulling cars off, just flooded everywhere. And my track basically looks the same. Put a bunch of drains in yesterday and built a whole new section. Unfortunately, not gonna be able to ride it today or probably for the next few days because it is just absolutely flooded here. Anyways, if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. I'd like to make a bunch more videos for you guys, just kind of show you what I'm finding on the Varg and a bunch of other bikes too. So hope to see you guys back. Take care.